sat outside of his shop and gave an interview and flat out says that he doesn't remember seeing me. He couldn't identify me. And also that his security cameras that he has don't have any footage from that time. And so regardless of anything, just this, the laptop, according to Lev Parnas, under oath in his testimony before the House Oversight Committee, was being sought by Rudy Giuliani in Ukraine all the way back in 2018. And so Rudy Giuliani is working with a guy named Andrei Derkach, who was a MP in Ukraine and a known Russian GRU agent. So Rudy goes over there and basically takes his dossier and receives information that Hunter Biden's hard drive, not laptop, is for sale. And the person that they can go to is this other Ukrainian Russian oligarch who is living in Austria. That's what Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman were doing, getting on the plane before they were arrested.
So how did
before John Paul McIsaac was ever a twinkle in anybody's eye?
I believe that. The story, that was always the weak part of the story. Like he drops off laptops. So
even John Paul McIsaac, okay, there is no such thing as a laptop. The laptop that he eventually turns over a year later, 18 months later, to the FBI. The thing that is distributed and disseminated that John Paul McIsaac claims that he got off of a device was a hard drive. And that hard drive had a limited amount of information, a limited amount of like gigabytes. I don't know the difference between a gigabyte and a whatever. And that goes into the hands. He somehow can't find anybody. You can't throw a stone in Trolley Square without hitting someone that knows me personally.
Right.
And he knows that. He's lived there his whole life. Instead, what he finds through this guy, Applebaum, is Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, Bob Costello. He turns over this hard drive. The hard drive becomes the platform from which all of the other stolen information which, by the way, every single forensic expert has made it clear, is that there's no possible way all of the information that was eventually labeled as my laptop came from one laptop. It's like it's way too large.
Came off the cloud.
Exactly. They hacked my cloud. I write about this in this book. One. So on Substack, I'm like laying all of this out, and there's a whole the NDI the whole thing about. There's these different silos. There's the Netanyahu silo, the Israeli side. There is a Russian-Ukrainian side of it. And then there are the U.S. actors that include Steve Bannon, Rudy Giuliani, Miles Gao, and a whole bunch of, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman and all of these guys.
Well, once the material starts circulating, the data from the cloud.
Yeah.
All kinds of people get involved and they're shopping it for different reasons. Yeah. And I agree.
Yes. And so, but my point is...
Who stole it?
Well, from the cloud?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You have as good a guess as mine in terms of actually who was the original hacker of that information, who has the capacity to be able to do it. And so, I have
But you don't have evidence.
I don't have a digital forensic evidence that it was hacked by this person or this entity or this organization, that it was Mossad or that it was the GRU or that it was some kid in his basement and figured it out. But here's the point. Overall, here's the thing, is I get caught in these conversations about all of this. But the reality is this: of what was distributed that was authentic, it's all mine. All those emails.
Yeah, I know.
Buckley. And you know what? Not a single one of them proves of any criminality of my father whatsoever, of any way in which I ever sent an email saying, hey, Dad, I need you to get this done on behalf of a client of mine. Now, I think that's dispositive. And I challenge anybody because it's all out there. The entire digital footprint. And I'm not just talking about my emails. I'm talking about, or 20 years of emails. I'm talking about 20 years of text messages. I'm talking about erased voicemails, like deleted voicemails, deleted photographs.
They don't actually delete, is what you're saying.
They clearly don't. I mean, voicemails from my dad to me. But that's not the only voicemail that was out there. But not a single one of them in which I say, hey, when my dad is in office or in power as vice president or president, in which I say, hey, Dad, I need you to do this for me, or even contacting one of his staffers. So either I'm incredibly good at, inactive addiction as a crack addict, or it doesn't exist. It truly, literally doesn't exist. The entire narrative of the Biden crime family, I mean, I literally, unlike anybody else, is like, I say to everybody, okay, show me your phone, because I showed you mine and you didn't find a goddamn thing. Not one thing. Every investigative body in the United States of America has investigated me for over 10 years at that point, and not one single thing of criminal activity other than use of drugs and all of the things that are associated with addiction is proved by the laptop.
When did you find out that the contents of your digital life were in circulation?
That day that the New York Post released it.
You had no idea?
No idea. None.
What were you doing that day? How did you find out?
So it was like 2 weeks before the election, right? October.
So up until that day, you had no clue? Because the FBI had the material.
None. No clue. Zero.